Welcome in. Belly up, have a seat, and grab a drink as we talk some wingman fantasy football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. And it is my great pleasure to welcome in to the bar, Mr. Bernie, a.k.a. Team B.
Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How are you doing today, Bernie?
I am doing well, Michael. How are you this evening?
A little up and down, a little gassy, but we're okay. We'll go from here. We're playing hurt tonight. We're playing hurt.
At least you're in the lineup.
There, exactly. Yeah. We'll get to some of that a little bit later. All right, guys. Let's see. This is episode 95, a week 2-point conversation. But before we get any further along in this episode, let's make sure that everybody is in the room.
Wingmen assemble!
All right, now that everyone is here, we've got another jam-packed episode for you where we will go through the studs and duds of week number 2. We will also settle into a nice week 2-point conversation where we will discuss all of the weekend's NFL action through the Sunday day games. But first, we must start off with some player news. On Saturday, Christian McCaffrey was placed on the IR, which means he's going to miss a minimum of 4 games. This has been an awful start to our managers who have drafted players with the first pick of Christian McCaffrey, as he has yet to be on the field, and he's already hurt them more than once. Also, in a little bit of a surprise, another high draft pick, A.J. Brown, suffered a hamstring injury late in the practice week and has already been ruled out for Monday night's game. T. Higgins also missed his second straight game this week as he was inactive for the Sunday game, and Keenan Allen was inactive for the Sunday night game against the Houston Texans. In better news, Rome Odunze was actually active, fresh off the drop from Team B, making it into the starting lineup for the Bears tonight. And a pair of tight ends, and David Njoku and Jake Ferguson were both inactive on Sunday. Jordan Love was also inactive, making way for Malik Willis to make his first start for the Packers. And I have to say, I'm going to be eating some crow. And Kenneth Walker, another member of the Team B squad, was also inactive on Sunday, creating a bit of a scramble for Team B as he had a lot of players dropping like flies later in the week. Let's just stop here real quick because we've got a lot more news. I had some thoughts what you might have to do in the case of A.J. Brown, thinking that they might be even a later scratch. They were nice enough to let you know this early. And you went the way I think I would have gone by picking up Goddard ahead of time to have at least a Monday backup plan if you needed it.
Yep, and that was going in. I was right before the game. I was hoping they would give me something, and they were nice enough to do it a little earlier, but I did have Goddard picked up, ready to plug in. I figured he's a good tight end, and without A.J. Brown, they're going to need another set of hands out there.
There weren't too many other options. The only other option I could really even think of was like Ray McLeod.
Yeah, it was a slim picking. So if I didn't have Goddard, I might have just sat him for Pickens earlier. So it's good that it worked out the way it did.
Yeah. All right, let's get back into some of the news here. We have receiver woes as Evan Ingram, who is listed as active by the active deadline. However, he got injured during the pregame warmups, which is after that designation, and he missed the game against the Browns. Cooper Kupp, our start of the week, left the game early with an ankle injury as he did not come out of the locker room from halftime. And Justin Jefferson, at least he posted his numbers early, but he also left the game with a quad injury. But he has stated that he should be fine going forward. Of course, we'll have to check in the practice reports later in the week to see how he progresses, but he seems to think right now that it's not too serious. Amon-Ra St. Brown, another first-round wide receiver. He sustained a lower body injury, and he was seen limping around late in the game, in the Lions-Bucks game. But once again, at least he got his points in before the limping off of the field. And a little bit of surprise, it was underreported, unless you were in the post-game interviews, Isaiah Pacheco was seen leaving the Chiefs Stadium on crutches. This might have this might sway us one way or another when we get to our early waiver looks. Also, Ken Walker. That's old news. And that's it. I didn't delete that one. So, all right. So now, do you have anything you want to add or anything you want to mention
there was a thing going out that George Kittle left on a stretcher. Do you hear anything about that, or did he come back out?
Yes, he left on a cart to go to the locker room, and he got an IV. So he was cramping up, dehydrated, something that he wasn't able to get to the locker room on his feet, but it was just a matter of fluids and or medicines. I'm not sure. But he came back and scored a touchdown after that. So he played.
He did, okay. Gotcha.
So, yes, thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
Yep.
All right, guys, it is now time to check in on our studs. Well, what button do I push? Studs and duds.
Wingman Fantasy Football, Studs and Duds.
All right, we're going to get right into it. Do you have the studs and duds sheet in front of you there, Mr. Bernie?
I do have the studs and duds sheet.
Why don't you start us off with those first 5 names on our studs list?
All right. We've got Kyler Murray coming in at a 28.54, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 59 rushing yards.
Oh, he should have been started everywhere.
Everywhere. He's on your bench, isn't he? DK Metcalf coming in at 23.9 points, 10 receptions, 129 yards, and a touchdown. Malik Neighbors, 23.7 points, 10 receptions again, 127 yards, and 1 touchdown. Calvin Ridley, 22.7 points, 4 receptions, 87 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Was he played today? Was he started in our fantasy league?
He was not. I believe he was on somebody's bench with
Wow.
Kyler.
Interesting.
Him and Kyler were warming the bench for some reason.
On one team. Wow.
Yeah,
okay. All right. Keep going. Sorry.
Live and learn. Live and learn. Number 5 on our list here is Mr. Devontae Adams, 21.5 points with 9 receptions, 110 yards, and 1 touchdown.
So I'm not going to say I was 100%. Obviously, I wasn't, but I am going to let you know when I am right, as well as wrong. Malik Neighbors was a start of the week, and he's at the top in this first group of studs. Congratulations to you, Malik Neighbors, and to myself. Thank you so much. On to our next group that are still in the stud category. We had Justin Jefferson, had 21.3 points with 4 receptions, 133 yards, and a touchdown. And most of that came on a 97-yard touchdown bomb in the first half. It was a great catch. And then he's like, you know what? There's enough space here. I'm going to stop, turn around, and run circles around the guys who are chasing me. What a great touchdown for Justin Jefferson. And Chris Godwin had 21.2 points with 7 receptions, 117 yards, and 1 touchdown. The question is, we asked last week, is Chris Godwin back? Looking like it. 2 games in a row in our stud list. Another stud for the second straight week is Breece Hall, a.k.a. Barisa Lightning, had 20.9 points with 114 total yards, 7 receptions, and 1 touchdown score. And another start of the week of yours truly, J.K. Dobbins, had 19.6 points with 131 yards rushing and a touchdown.
That is something there. So J.K. outran the Gus Bus, but we knew that going in, didn't we? Good call on your end. So next we have Quentin Johnson, 19.6 points, 5 receptions, 51 yards, and 2 touchdowns. James Conner, the man is running, 18.9 points, 122 rushing yards with 1 touchdown. Oh my God, this guy. I was watching this game. Rashid Shaheed, 18.9 points, 109 total yards, 4 receptions, 1 touchdown. And luckily, the guy that I was playing in our league had Rashid Shaheed on the bench. Braylon Allen, 18.6. Oh man, the Jets were just tearing it up down.
Yeah, two running backs make the stud list today.
Yeah, 56 total yards with 2 touchdowns. Braylon Allen, wow.
All right, we have Zay Flowers for the Baltimore Ravens at 18.6 points. He was getting peppered all day with 7 receptions, 91 yards, and he scored a touchdown. Also, we have our first kicker to make the list, Daniel Carlson of the Raiders, had 18 points with 4 field goals and 2 extra points, and he had a late field goal that had helped with a comeback victory. They scored a touchdown, take the lead, or a field goal. I'm not sure now, but he was a big part of their comeback as they were down, I don't know, about 18 points in the late third quarter or fourth quarter against the Ravens as the Raiders had a huge upset there. Jackson Smith and Jigba went from dud last week to stud this week with 17.7 points. he had 12 receptions for 117 yards. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, he also rebounded from a dud last week to get 17.4 points with 11 receptions and 119 yards.
Wow. So then we have go over to George Kittle, 17.1 points, 7 receptions, 76 yards, and a touchdown. Still having fun out on the field. Another one of those top 5 drafted receivers, CeeDee Lamb, 17 points, 4 receptions, 90 yards, 1 touchdown. Oh, here we go. We got a kicker, and I think this kicker is on somebody's team. Brandon Aubrey, 17 points. Big leg. 4 field goals and 1 PAT. And another kicker. How many kickers is that now? 3 or 4 kickers on this list? Evan McPherson, 16 points, 4 field goals, and a PAT.
The problem here was in our league, we had Aubrey up against McPherson, so they negated each other. And I'm going to say I've had 2 weeks in a row where my kickers outscored my quarterback, as Brandon Aubrey is my kicker, and I appreciate him. That just tells you what I think about the other position on the team. All right, now it's time to get into some duds. Why don't you kick us off on the duds list here as well, Mr. Bernie?
Oh, and this is a sad one for me, to 11.5 points.
Let's just stop here real quick. I forgot to put him in the news. I forgot to put him in the news there. So, all right. So we had Tua Tagovailoa did not. He was playing poorly as it was on Thursday night against the Bills. He's getting sacked, throwing interceptions.
He was off. Yep.
But he did get a pretty rough concussion. And honestly, it's hard to tell when you look in slow motion. I think it was that second hit, the crunch. It wasn't the first hit to the top of the head, which was bad, but it was the crunch and then twist. Once he did the twist, you could see that's when his body was starting to do that weird flex, that posturing they call. And he's scary when he gets concussions because his body contorts in unnatural ways. Yeah. So I don't know if the concussion's bad or just the way he responds to them.
I believe they call that fencing.
Yes,
is the term they use for that. Yeah, that's it was rough to see. It's heartbreaking for Tua. It's a downer for the Dolphins, but he's got up. He's okay, and we'll take it from there.
We'll get more into that in our 2-point conversation. All right, who's else on our duds?
Oh, another quarterback here, Justin Fields, 11.38 on the dud list. Oh, another quarterback. Oh, Josh Allen, 9.76. I see a trend forming here. One more quarterback, top 4 duds quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford, 8.64, and then Mr. Jerome Ford at 6.9.
All right, another member of that Dolphins team who had a rough night. We had Jalen Waddle, could only get 6.5 points. And once again, the second straight week on the dud list, Brandon is starting to get a new nickname. He's going to stick. Brandon Ayuk had only 6.3 points. Alexander Madison, this is crazy. He had 6.1 points. He scored a touchdown. And that's it.
Wow.
He scored a touchdown with 1 yard. He had a 1-yard touchdown, and that was his whole day.
Wow.
Also, we had Demarcus Robinson. Hard to say if he was, but he was one of our higher priced waiver wire pickups this week. He only was able to get 6 points. He had 1 long catch early, but that was pretty much it. So he finished with 6 points today.
All right, and then we have Gus Edwards. The other end of the stud on the same team is the dud on that team, 5.9 points. Cooper Kupp, get well, Cooper, 5.7 points. Mr. Mike Evans, future Hall of Famer, only 5.7 points, but Baker looked good. Jaden Reed, 5.6 points, coming off of a huge week last week.
I want to give props to you a little bit as well. When we're discussing our matchups in our fantasy football league, you were saying, should he play Jaden Reed or DK Metcalf? And as we discussed, the Malik Willis was the factor here, and DK Metcalf had a monster day in comparison to Jaden Reed. My notes here are a little shifted here. I just want to make a note here. We do have Gus Edwards on this lower end of the dud list here, while J.K. Dobbins is on the stud list. But Gus Edwards did get the 18 carries there. So he did get a lot of work. He's just getting 3 yards at a time. And Dobbins is breaking those 60-yard runs. That's the difference between those two guys.
Yeah, and the difference between fantasy and real life is the coach doesn't care. The coach says, no, you're doing what I want you to do. You're eating up the clock. You're getting a couple of yards here and there. You're doing just fine.
All right, continuing on our dud list for the second straight week, a first rounder, another one of our early holdouts is another data point. I think we're 5 out of 6 data points in the dud list, as Jamar Chase had only 5.5 points. Dalton Kincaid could only get 5.3, and Zamir White also had 5.3. Zach Moss could only get 5.2 points. That's that middle tier running backs. Hard to ask for too much more, but they did not help you got your team out today.
Yeah, and then we got starting off with two top tier wide receivers. Terry McLaurin had a scary dud number, 5.2. Tyreek Hill, and it's not surprise with Tua going in the dud list, and his receivers aren't too far behind. Tyreek Hill with a 5.3. Jacoby Myers coming in with a 4.9. And Bryce Young, oh my gosh, somebody get this kid off of this team. 3.96 for Bryce Young. And I saw him take a hit today.
Oh, yeah?
And he got up. He's a tough kid. And he got up, but he took a hit. That line is atrocious.
All right, so next we have George Pickens. Who were thinking about between him and the other player when you were talking earlier in the week?
It was going to be Pickens or, oh man, you got me. You put me on the spot.
Sorry about that. Well,
Anyway,
right. You were considering Pickens, and we kind of talked you out of it based on the Patrick Surtain being the number one coverage guy who shadows. And once again, Surtain did certain things as he shut down the second receiver in a row. Last week was DK Metcalf. This week was George Pickens. Pickens going at 3.9 points. Ladd McConkey only got 3.6. He did have a long touchdown catch, but it was called back on a penalty, and he didn't do anything else other than that. And it's hard to trust any of the teammates of Anthony Richardson as he is just super erratic, as Michael Pittman Jr., who needs a lot of consistency, is not getting it, can only get 3.6 points. And our highest priced waiver acquisition, Isaiah Likely, only mustered 3.6 points. And even Xavier's not worthy as he could only get 3.2 points.
Yeah, and I'll take blame for that Isaiah Likely there. I did have him high on my list. Oh, you know what? George Pickens, I do have a fun fact about him in this game because I was watching this game since I had two players going. He had 2 touchdowns called off because of penalties.
Oh, okay.
So he was connecting with Fields early in the game, and those things just got wiped off the board. It was sad to see.
Okay.
All right, continuing on this list, Cortland Sutton again. I think this is the second week in a row. 3.1 points. Deontay Johnson, 3 points. Brandon Cooks, 2.9 points. Rashad White, 2.8 points, and Amari Cooper, 2.6 points.
More like Amari Pooper, am I right? Sorry, okay. Also, I want to mention Brandon Cooks was another one of our higher price free agent pickups. He went for $15. I think it was the second highest price other than the secondary waiver market of Mark Andrews. And once again, we've had our higher priced waiver pickups not perform and show the waste of money in 2 ways. 1, there was no other bids for these guys, and 2, they did not even help you on your own team.
And I think that's a very good look at the knee-jerk reaction to the week 1 results.
I never spend a lot of money, and I spent a lot this first week because of just my wide receiver needs, and it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
All right, these last guys rounding out oh my gosh, this last guy on the list is already screaming in my face. The last 4 guys on this list, Tyler Lockett, after a great week last week, came back down to earth, scoring only 2.5 points. And Sam Laporta, went for 2.3 points. DeAndre Hopkins can only get 1.4, and Travis Kelce had 1.1. So once again, a little battle between Nick's team's Waddle Away and myself. Who has the best tight end? We both have the worst tight ends. They've been on the dud list 2 weeks in a row, and Travis Kelce was the lowest scoring rostered player in the league. Not only rostered player, but he started for me this week. He is absolutely killing me.
Yes. Okay. One quick fact about Sam Laporta. I watched a little bit of that game, and they were down inside the 5, and for some reason they decided to call a play where they were throwing it to Jameson Williams, and I have no idea why they drew this play up. There's not enough field for them to stretch. They should have gave Sam Laporta that look, and it was rough. It was rough to see.
All right, guys. So you might have noticed we haven't mentioned some of the best players of the week because we've got some other guys who have leveled up. We've got the Mecha Studs.
Mega Studs.
All right. In the Mecha Studs category, I know you were watching this one. You already said you had your eyes glued to the television.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara was, oh my gosh.
Wow.
So I wasn't sure how much credit to give to Clint Kubiak going into the season, but I told you I kind of like the running back on that team, and he has been a super stud, a Mecha Stud, this time going nuclear as he had 43 points, 180 total yards, 4 touchdowns. Most of that was in the first half and a little bit of the third. He was just on fire. Also, a player on Thursday night, James Cook, had 28 points with 95 total yards and 3 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr. went from ridiculed, overhyped rookie, a dud last week in the Travis Kelce vein. This week, he had 130 yards and 2 touchdowns, including scoring 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, which pretty much locked in his day as a superstar. Also, another Thursday night running back is Devon the Man Achane, had 26 points with 165 total yards, 7 receptions, and a touchdown. The only Dolphin to do anything on Thursday night. And a kicker. For the second straight week, we have a kicker in the Mecha Dud list. This time it was Austin Sabert of the Washington Commanders, had 7 field goals. They were all short field goals, though, as he only got 22 points. He only had 1 bonus point for 1 40-yard kick, as Jaden Daniels could get him to the 5-yard line. I think they were 0 for 6 in red zone attempts or whatever today. They could not score touchdowns, but they were driving the ball. And another kicker makes the Mecha Stud list. What do you think about these guys here? I know you've got a lot to say about Kamara here.
I think that this list is almost a little bit telling. We've got 2 on the Thursday night game, and we've got the rookie Marvin Harrison that was due up. But Kamara, oh my gosh, Kamara looked like a man alive. He was just running, and these guys could not even catch him. It's not like he had angles on people. He was just.
Dallas's defense looked super slow in pursuit. I don't know what the reasoning was, if it was like bad angles or they looked slow in pursuit.
No, they just looked slow. Yeah, but is it they were slow or he was just that much faster? It was
a lot of times that Shanahan Kubiak / scheme is getting guys off balance, really over pursuing in one direction and having a back crack block on the other direction. And if you get the one seal, he'd even need blocks though. On those long runs, I'm like, okay, someone's going to seal the wall for him. He just went around the wall.
It was amazing to see. So I guess that's scheme, execution, and talent.
There you go.
All 3 hit, and he was the beneficiary of that.
All right, guys, now it's time. We're going to get into all the day's actions, including the Thursday game, in this week's 2-point conversation.
Is Jack Del Rio going to go for 2 here,
He's
Link?
going for 2.
The Raiders will go for 2 and the probable victory with 47 seconds left.
If you don't make this, you lose. If you make it, you're in a position to win.
Wingman Fantasy Football's 2-point conversation.
And it's good! Oh my goodness!
All right, why don't you head us off and let us get into the games. Which game are we starting with this time around in our 2-point conversation?
Would you like to start with the Thursday night game? Or
let's go as much in sequential order as we can handle. Yep, yeah.
Okay. So we got Thursday night. We had Buffalo at Miami. Buffalo took that one 31-10, puts Buffalo 2-0, and Miami at 1-1.
So this game started off quickly with James Cook scoring a long touchdown right off the bat. Then I think there was an interception from maybe or maybe a 3-and-out, a quick a non-offensive drive, and they just poured it on him. As then I think Cook scored again. He scored 2 touchdowns right away, finished with 3. A lot of them were long plays, and then Dolphins could just never come back. They were out of sync the entire time. Raheem Mostert was inactive, so it was all Achane. Achane was getting all of the work, and he did great. Yeah. But it wasn't enough compared to the turnovers, and they just couldn't stop the Buffalo Bills offense.
Yeah, Achane had that 22 carries. It was a pretty nice night for Achane. So compared to James Cook on the other side, who only had 11 carries, so it was big time for that. All right, go ahead.
So the other thing I noticed, we were with Mostert out, we had Jeff Wilson as his style of running back's replacement. Didn't get nearly the volume that Mostert did, but Jeff Wilson also left the game with, I believe, an oblique injury of some sort, if I'm not mistaken. So it shouldn't be long term, but now we have both those guys banged up. Maybe Mostert can come back next week. I'm not sure. Jalen Wright did get on the field, but he didn't get a lot of work, and they didn't trust him. I guess they let Achane, once Wilson got banged up, Achane finished the game even in a blowout. It was a little risky having one of your best players in there in a blowout, but that's how it went down.
Yeah. So all right, here we go. And Tua, so get well Tua. We're all rooting for you.
I saw something today on him. I guess the question's like, should he? A lot of it's just straw man questions, but I mean, they're fair to ask the question, but then they, whatever. Should he retire? Yes, he should, blah, blah, blah. So I like the statement he had, because there's no reason to make any decision on anything to get more information. There's just no point in saying, like, I'm definitely playing or I'm definitely retiring. He's like, we're going to get healthy and we're going to figure it out, but my intention is if I can, I'm going to play. Like, he wants to play. He wants to continue his career, which he should. So I like that thing. Like, my intention is to come back and play, because why not? I don't know if he needs rehab, but why not get yourself prepared to come back? If you prepare yourself, I might come back, I might not, then you're not really preparing to come back in the instance that you're have the ability to.
Exactly. And I think for all the talking heads and all the pundits out there, their opinion is pretty much what they would do if they were in his situation, which they're not. And it just shows that's what they would do. It's not, it's like you said, let him just come back and get prepared. And then if he gets to play, he gets to play. And if he makes a decision, he does. It's on him.
All right. Do you have anything else with this game, or do you want to move to the next one?
No, let's move along here. Let's move to the game that really was exciting here. So we got New Orleans at Dallas.
All right.
New Orleans at 44 points, Dallas at 19. That puts New Orleans at 2-0 and Dallas at 1-1.
So the thing I did notice that I appreciated in a fantasy football sense is that even though Dallas was down, they kept kicking field goals, and I love that. Mike McCarthy is a fantasy kicker's manager's dream, as he doesn't care if he's down by 30 points. He's going to get that down to 27. You never know.
You never know. What Dallas kickers on whose team?
Amazing Spidey's team.
Oh, there we go. Amazing Spidey loves that. So. It was a good night for New Orleans, and Dallas's defense looked like they were just standing still.
Yeah, I had the game on one of the smaller screens because I didn't have anyone in that game except the kicker, and that you're just kind of watching those points go up. So I didn't need to watch too much, but the highlights were popping in every game I had on, no matter what.
And Brandon Aubrey's long was a 52, so it wasn't crazy long. He did have 13 points for the out of Dallas's 19. Yeah. Oh boy. Oh, Dallas. All right, moving on. You got anything else on this one?
I was going to say they were just shell-shocked, Dallas was. CeeDee Lamb finished with a decent game. I don't know how many targets he had. That's not that important if you have it, but if you do that, that's good too. But it seemed like he got his like last week he was targeted a ton and didn't get the counting stats by the end. This time I feel like he wasn't targeted as much, but got the big play, the big touchdown that kind of helped him get a decent day.
Well, he was second on the target share. So Jalen Tolbert had 9 targets and he had 6 receptions for 82 yards. CD only had 7 targets.
Yes.
But the 4 receptions, he made those
right.
count.
Like, I think last week he had way more targets, and then they just didn't. They were the ones he caught were shorter, and the ones he dropped were longer. And this time, the ones he caught were longer, and the ones he dropped were shorter. Didn't connect.
Right. So for fantasy value, he got the 90 yards and the touchdown, which really helps. He had a long of 65, which helps with a little bonus. So for fantasy, he was okay, but in game, it wasn't as good as it could have been.
So was the New Orleans, because last week they won. I think they had 47. They had over 40 points. I think I saw a number. I couldn't tell if they were the second team or the first team. So through 2 weeks, at the point they showed this stat, the top scoring team and the best scoring team through 2 weeks was 93 points, and the second was 91. I couldn't see if they were the 91 or 93, but they're up among the top 2 most points scored in the first 2 weeks to start a season in whatever period of time that stat was shown for.
Yeah, I think I heard a similar stat, but I think it was going back into last season where they finished off and they were also scored like 47 or something points.
Okay.
And I think they had like 2 games in a row or 3 games in a row, and this would have made 4 games in a row or 3 games in a row, and that would have been some sort of record of some sort. So they're just on fire, man. Whatever they're doing, like I said, the scheme, the execution, and the talent, they're gelling.
I guess one more quick note, Taysom Hill did leave the game early. I know he's not a big-time player. You had him on your team. You did drop him prior to the week because you needed some extra flexibility with your guys being inactive at the last minute. But that is a player that is going to be picked up, we figure, at least 2 to 3, 4 times throughout the season. And right now, I do not know the severity, but he did not finish the game.
Yeah, I saw he had 1 rushing attempt from what I saw. He did have a 1 target and 1 reception for 1 yard. So they were kind of moving him around. It looks like he had 3 carries for 18 yards.
Okay. All right. What else you got there? Or move it along if you want, whatever you want.
Yeah, let's go to the the big game in the Dome we thought was going to be a high-powered game. Tampa Bay at Detroit. Tampa Bay wins this one 20-16, puts Tampa at 2-0 and Detroit at 1-1.
All right. So in all fairness, I was a little, patting my back there on those two, on the receiver and running back starts of the week that I put out there. And we both put in our starts of the week the quarterbacks for this game. And the yards were actually there. I think Goff had more yards, but he didn't have any touchdowns, I don't think. Maybe one. And then Mayfield didn't. I don't know what they were doing. They didn't have as many yards, but he had more touchdowns. But they both pretty much, I think one was 18 points, one with 14 points, give or take. Definitely not starts of the week. No studs. So we failed you on the quarterbacks. We both did, but I obviously took it to another level on the hype of the early season schedule for Jared Goff, calling the Dominator. We need to cut that out right now. He does not dominate anybody. He is just a regular guy. Remember when we started to say that they're I thought the Lions should have won this game, obviously, when I was watching it. We were saying their defense is starting to get good. They just need a game manager. We're right about there, and Jared Goff could just be your high-priced game manager. I think that's all he's going to be. He's not going to put up those points, it seems like, this year.
Yeah, no, Jared Goff, he did have a ton of attempts, though. He was 34 of 55.
Oh, wow.
He did have 307 yards, no touchdowns.
That's what it was. Yeah, he had a ton of yards. I kept looking up.
Interceptions, yeah. And then on the flip side, Baker only threw the ball 19 times, and he had 12 completions, 185 yards, but he did have that touchdown.
Well, I would say he might have 19 pass attempts, but he dropped back way more because he kept getting sacked by Hutchinson. Hutchinson had 5 sacks by himself.
Sacks. Yep,
that was
lost
fun to watch.
39 yards on those 5 sacks.
Yeah.
So and that was the other big note of this game was Hutchinson hitting that 5 sacks. So I believe 7 or was it 7.5?
I saw 5.5.
5.5. It was 5.5
Okay.
was the Lions record. So he was almost there. Almost there. All right, let's move on to the next game here. Got anything else in this one?
No, just that it was a close game all the way through, and it seemed like both teams had a chance, but both teams weren't super crisp on off there. I felt like the teams were better on defense than offense.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. They had the energy, but they couldn't get the plays down.
I want to say one more thing. I want to make a correction. Last week I said that the passing defense would be poor for Tampa Bay because they lost Carlton Davis to injury. Mm-hmm. Carlton Davis left in free agency. It was Antoine Winfield that was not playing due to injury. I got that a little mixed up there. I just want to make that correction while I'm thinking about it.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Next game we have is Indianapolis at Green Bay, and Indianapolis loses this one 10-16, putting Indy at 0-2 and Green Bay at 1-1.
So this one, as a Josh Jacobs manager, I didn't see many of his. Every time I looked, he was on the sideline, and every time I didn't look, I guess he was getting carries and yards because he had a ton of carries, a ton of yards. The second straight player to go against the Colts to have 30 carries and 150 yards.
Yep.
Jacobs is running the ball.
32 carries.
Yeah, I mean minimum of 30 carries and 150 yards, like hitting those thresholds. Yeah. He killed me. He fumbled a touchdown run. He was going in. The worst ball security I've seen in a crowd. He was doing the old chicken wing of LaShawn McCoy in a crowd, and that thing just got punched out from the back clean as day. But he was going to score if the lane was in front of him, and he just, I don't know what he was doing. He had catch his balance, and he just totally had his arm out to the side, the ball high out there ready to be poked away.
Yeah, that close to the goal line, you definitely can't be running it like that. I did see that play as well. His long was 34 yards though, so that was
early in the game. That was before I even got the game settled into. Yeah,
he was still moving, so it looked good. And on the flip side, Jonathan Taylor, 12.
He looked great
for 103. He did
on only 12 carries.
But I don't know. I don't even know what to say about Anthony Richardson that you haven't said already. The kid is just raw talented, but 3 interceptions and just give the ball to Taylor. Just stop and give the ball. There were a couple of options that he had that you could clearly see him looking at the guy coming across the line, the defensive end, hands the ball to Taylor, and Taylor gets tackled from behind. He didn't chip block the guy. He could have held that ball. That defensive end would have followed Taylor around. He would have had some space. It happened twice in this game that I saw. He's just I guess he's a rookie doing rookie things. Is that the excuse? And he's so talented that he makes up for those things. But
yeah,
they could have won this game if
for everything he gives up. He gives back, or everything he gets, he gives back, kind of thing. I believe Alex Pierce scored the touchdown again though for them. So that they're starting. That's the connection they're kind of getting on that. More. It wasn't a super long pass, but it was definitely like an over the shoulder catch if I recall, or at least down the sideline.
Yeah.
I do have another question. If I was watching the game and I guess walked out of the room just for a moment. The Colts that were down by 2 scores, they scored with, I don't know, about a minute to go, minute and 20, give or take. And they said they obviously had to go for an onside kick because they were still down by 6. And when I came back, they had the ball with 30 seconds to go. Do you know how that happened? Did they do an onside kick? Did they recover it?
They did not do an onside, or they did do an onside kick. I don't think they recovered it.
They just had enough timeouts and they got it back?
I guess so. I didn't see the end of that. So
I walked away for like 30 seconds and all of a sudden the ball again. I've never seen an onside kick with this new kicking formation, so I was curious how it went because I believe the formation changes when you do onside kick. So it's like you have to declare we're going for an onside kick. Line up here.
Yeah. Prior to it, it looked like it was the same type of kick. I saw an onside kick in another game.
Okay.
And it looks like they all are lining up the same way, formation wise.
Okay.
To whichever side they're gonna do. So I think it's just the declaring it ahead of time was the big change.
But with that being said, they did get the ball back after they were down. I think between 12 and 16 points or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And they scored to get it, I think, within 6. They got the ball back, and they drove down to the 10-yard line because Anthony Richardson on a long, I don't know, it was a 3rd and 11, ran for a first down, or 4th and 11, ran for a first down to the 6-yard line. And I forget what happened the last play or two, if they ran out of downs, if it got intercepted. But they got down to the, in the red zone for a chance to tie the game.
No. This was I did see this. I think you might be thinking of another game. It was the whole field he had to go down. He got to, I believe, about the 20 or 30. Okay. And he had to throw a bomb. It was a Hail Mary play, and everybody was saying, well, the kid's got the arm. Let's see the arm. And he threw it to about the 5-yard line. He didn't quite get it to the end zone, and it was picked. That was his 3rd pick, was that Hail Mary at the end.
You know what? I think that play that I was talking about where he got the first down, that led to the score prior to the Hail Mary.
Okay.
How I said they scored and they got the ball back. That's that because that got them into like the 8-yard line. I think they scored on that one. Okay. And then when they got the ball back, they were on midfield or so and had to do the Hail Mary. That's probably what it was.
So I just want to give just a quick sidebar shout out to all the analysts that watch all these games and do the analysts. I watched a lot of the games as well, and my brain is jumbled.
Today I finally figured out, because last week I had 5 games on, and in the studio here I've got 5 TVs and stuff. Yeah. And I thought that'd be enough, but even when we were going through the games last week, I'm like, I didn't watch that game, or that game. Today I figured it out. I got the 4 split screen from the one from the YouTube thing, so I was able to get all 10 games on at the same time. Granted, I was churning my neck to get to all of them, but I did have all 10 games on at the same time. It was it's hard to, like you said, it's hard to, you're watching them all, but you're not really taking them all in.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to say a quick thing before we go to the next game on Malik Willis? 12 for 14, 122 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, no sacks.
I did not see his stat line, but I was watching. He was doing doing what, like the Richardson's type thing. He wasn't running a lot, but when he was running, it was for like when it was like 3rd and 8 or 2nd and 8, kind of like scramble. But he would get a nice chunk play and get the first down, keep drives going. I didn't know he only threw the ball 14 times, which is perfect because the more you give him chances, he's going to make mistakes. He threw his very first touchdown pass of his career, I believe. Even in his last 3, he had 3 or 4 starts for Tennessee, no touchdown passes. If I recall, if I'm hearing the stat right, and his first touchdown was a pass to Dontavian Wicks. Yep. So he already excelled anything he's done in the past. So I'm not going to say he hasn't been the worst player I've ever seen, but today he definitely was not. Maybe a change of scenery, better coaching. I don't know. I mean, Tennessee had good coaches, so I don't want to say that, but an offensive-minded coach maybe worked better with his skills. He did great today managing the game. They leaned on Josh Jacobs, and they let Malik Willis just do the fill in the gaps, and he did him well.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Moving on to the next game here. We've got the New York Jets at Tennessee. And Mr. Aaron and the Jets win this one 24-17, putting the Jets at 1-1 and Tennessee at 0-2.
For the second straight week, Tennessee's defense was great for about 3 quarters. I don't know if they wore out or if it's like a baseball pitcher. After a while, the hitters start to figure out your stuff. I don't know. But they had this one. More boneheaded plays from
Will Levis.
Will Levis. That was funny because when we mentioned the offseason, unfair comparison, but the idea was he's a raw Josh Allen before Josh Allen figured it out. Not where Josh Allen's now, like Josh Allen as a rookie. When and you said that Allen was more, we just said hyper. I don't know if that was the word you would have said if I didn't feed it to you, but you said Allen was more hyper and you thought Levis was more calm, and Levis is just a wild bonehead out there. Like when something goes wrong, he just shirt off or, just, I don't know. Like he's like, like someone's to my right. I got to just do a backflip all of a sudden. Like, I don't know. He just has like, he's like his perception of the problems and what he has to do to correct them is like not in the same vein at all.
Yeah, I think maybe the NFL game is obviously to him super quick compared to what he was used to. But he wasn't horrible last year, but he wasn't starting last year. He wasn't the full-time starter. So I think maybe with the game plan with him, and he's just like, okay, things are happening too fast. I don't want to look bad. Let me just get rid of the ball. Let me make something happen.
But every time he does it, it's worse than if he... Yeah. So I don't know how long of a leash he has. I don't even know who the backup is there right now, to be honest with you, to be fair. But their coaches were not happy with him after a couple of those boneheaded mistakes. Because honestly, if he just, I don't know the situation of each of those mistakes, what would have been different if he'd taken a sack, for example, or thrown out of bounds. But they're holding the opponents to 17 points or less, and they're ahead by 7 or 10 points in all these games. Going to the fourth quarter, they're blowing these games.
Yeah. And he took 4 sacks. He used 4 sacks for 22 yards there and 1 interception. So I think they just need to rein it in. And it might be something where they're asking him to do too much for what he is. There might be the offensive line. I didn't do a deep dive into this as far as watching this game. So we'll see, though. We do have to call out Calvin Ridley, though. This is the upside to Calvin here. 4 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown on 6 targets, with a long being 40 yards. So
going into this one, I had Calvin Ridley in my starting lineup. I was, I thought inexplicably, Mark Andrews was the drop for the Isaiah Likely pickup. So I jumped on the chance to get a 6th round pick onto my team, and I put him in ahead of Calvin Ridley, being that Ridley was playing against the Jets, whose pass defense is way better than their run defense.
Yeah.
The thing that made me slow down a little bit was that I found out during the week in my research that Sauce Gardner does not shadow players. He stays on one side of the field. Yeah. And last week, Calvin Ridley, his percentages were not on one side of the field. I forget what it was, but he was pretty evenly moved around between slot, left side, right side, give or take. Whatever it was enough to say he's going to get at least 40% of this game without Sauce Gardner. But I'm like, do I want to play a guy who's a 50-50 type of player with only 40% of that 50-50? He didn't get a lot of touches today. He had an end around on his score, and he was being covered on that play by Sauce Gardner because he went all the way around the formation on a handoff, and Gardner was the one chasing him. But he Ridley is fast. I told you, he looks really fast this year. Was able to turn the corner and get upfield. By the time Gardner caught up to him, they were crashing at the goal line. And then he didn't do anything for the rest of the. I was watching the thing. He had 9 points on that first drive, and that 9 points stayed there all the way through. Then he caught a nice 48-yard touchdown pass. So he pretty much had only 2 plays, but they were both. I mean, he had 4 catches. Pretty much had 2 big enough plays, but they were both touchdowns. Yeah. And that's what he's a kind of a boom bust type of guy. He's a terrifying person to play. I went for safety over volatility, and that's going to bite me in the buttocks.
There you go. And then on the other side of the ball, Breece Hall obviously was on our stud list, but Braylon Allen was creeping up on him. Braylon had 2 touchdowns, a receiving touchdown and a rushing touchdown. But Braylon only carried the ball 7 times against Breece's 14. So Breece did have 1 receiving touchdown, which helped his game. And he had over 100 total yards on the ground. Or total yards.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, receiving.
Yeah, I think he had 7 catches. He had like a Devon Achane type of game today.
Yeah, he did 7 for 52 and a touch. So
there you go.
He did a good job there. All right. Anything else about this game for you?
No, we need to get off this. This game's about again, I had a start of the week for the Tennessee defense. It was looking good for the first half again. They were definitely controlling them, and then so I was 50-50. The players that really matter are the receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, and defenses don't matter. So so I was 2 for 2 and 2, but if you want to count the positions that really matter, I was 2-0. So let's just go with that. All right, keep moving along.
All right. San Fran at Minnesota. This was exciting. San Fran loses 17-23, putting San Fran at 1-1 and Minnesota at 2-0.
So in this one, fantasy-wise, I know we're talking NFL, but I've got to play in this game with Jordan Mason, who gave me remember I said Gus Edwards was a potential start of the week, but I couldn't put him, even with that, I couldn't put him ahead of Mason once we found out if McCaffrey was not going to play. Right. And once he was deemed out and on the IR, regardless of circumstance, Mason's going to jump any questionable type start of the week player. But I was nervous because Minnesota's defense is looking pretty good. They look good again today, and I have to say Jordan Mason's in his post-game interview from the last Monday night game was so honest and so many answers. So they asked him something about was Christian McCaffrey giving you pointers on the sideline in that game, or were you talking to him, blah, 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 in the game? And he's like, yeah, I was talking to him, and I went to him I don't know how you do this. He had 29 carries that game, right? Or 24, 28 carries. I don't know how you do this. And I was like, this guy's not, he's going to be, we forget, these guys are regular people. Yeah, I mean they're on the upper tier of stuff, but think about if you've worked out the hardest you've worked out in your whole life, you're gonna be pretty beat for the next week. Yeah, and then you're gonna get used to it. And I was nervous, but he actually finished with a decent day. They gave him a lot of carries. He looked good on some of these runs, man. He finishes with power. Not only does he find the hole, but he crashes through guys. He did get the touchdown to save his day. Got 100 yards again, but he definitely looked a little tired, a little slow. And Darnold was just again managing very well. He did awesome.
Yeah, I agree. But on both sides of that ball there, you nailed it. 20 for 100 and a touch for Jordan. And then Sam Darnold, 17 for 26, 268, 2 touchdowns. He did have 1 interception, and he was sacked 3 times, but he managed the game well. And when it counted, it counted. And Justin Jefferson is Justin Jefferson.
So that's 2 weeks in a row, if I'm not mistaken, that Darnold had at least 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Did he have 2 touchdowns in week 1? I think he did.
We'll have to double check that when we get to the waiver wire.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving along here. Let's go to the next game. Seattle at New England. Another nail biter, this one. Seattle wins 23-20 in overtime, putting Seattle at 2-0 and New England at 1-1.
So this game, in terms of, again, is NFL and fantasy, due to the Kenneth Walker being inactive, Charbonnet got the start. This is the one game I didn't watch because we were moving around for my daughter's birthday party, so I kind of forgot it was on. I looked, it's still on. It said, what's going on here? Anyway, so I didn't see if anyone else was taking spell work from Charbonnet. Charbonnet was not nearly as effective in an efficiency standpoint compared to how Walker was, especially in that second half last week. But being that he was the main guy, he did finish with accounting stats, got close to 100 yards, I believe, and a touchdown. I'm not sure how many yards he got, but he did finish with a score to get around that 14 points. Wasn't a great day, but a guy that you weren't ever going to start, except for these situations, you'll take a free 14 points.
So he had 14 carries for 38 yards and a touch, but he did have 5 receptions for 31 yards.
Yeah, okay.
So he did have
so it's 65 yards, 5 catches, and a touchdown. So that's a very solid day from most likely your flex or second flex that you put in due to advantageous news based on his backfield mate. Yep.
And he was the only rusher today. Geno rushed 5 times for 8 yards, but there wasn't another back.
All right, so that's what I didn't see, and I wasn't sure. Yeah, so okay, so good to know. So that backfield, I wouldn't say it's a superstar backfield, but they are committed enough, especially in the red zone. These guys are gonna if there's 3 touchdowns scored by the Seahawks, it seems like a guarantee at least one's going to the running back.
For sure. DK had a stunning game, 10 for 129 and a touch, so we got to call that out.
That first long catch he had, they just left him wide open. I was sick to see that.
All right, anything on the New England side that caught your attention?
Not really, just by box score watching there. It seemed like Ramondre was going slow. He didn't have a lot of stats early, and by the end, I don't know when he scored his touchdown. At fourth quarter, I would assume by the end, though, he finished with another nice day.
Yeah, it looked like he might have been tired, or they might have switched the game plan up because Antonio Gibson had 11 carries for 96 yards. Okay. On top of Ramondre's 21 for 81 and a touch.
Okay.
All right, moving along here. Let's go to the game. These are 2 powerhouse teams. New York Giants at Washington. Giants win this one 18-21. The Giants lose this one 18-21. Put the Giants at 0-2 and Washington at 1-1.
So in this one, we had our start of the week, Malik Neighbors. Every time I looked up, he was there throwing the ball to him. He even dropped a few passes today that would have made his day even bigger. I think one costly drop on a third and medium to long that would have kept one of their last drives going towards a touchdown instead of a field goal, I believe. Either would have helped him tie it up or take a bigger lead late in the game. But all day long, he was looking really good. His route running is really sharp. He breaks them off and gets open, which someone like Daniel Jones needs to see an open target. He's not really a anticipatory type of play quarterback. He needs to see the guy open, and Neighbors shows him a big target, a big space around a target with his snapback cuts, and he looked great. I thought Neighbors looked. That's the first time I really watched Neighbors, and he looked. If you want that possession receiver, he's going to get open every time in that 8-yard slot spot, and is fast enough to go over the top. He's perfect guy to go for.
Yeah, and he showed up on the stat sheet just like Harrison Jr. did today with 10 receptions, 127 yards, a touchdown. He did have 18 targets, which blew away the rest of them. And his long was a 28. And just a quick note, just looking at the box score here, between the two quarterbacks, Daniel Jones had 28 attempts. Jaden Daniels had 29 attempts. Daniel Jones only threw the ball to 4 different receivers. Jaden Daniels threw it to 7 different receivers. So it looked like the Giants, these are the guys, get the ball to these guys, and let's go from there.
As a joke, we were contemplating making Daniel Jones a starter of the week, and he outperformed both of our starters of the week, getting 18.5 points, or at least he was very close to Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and I wasn't joking. I really thought about picking him up off the waiver wires, and basically you talked me out of it, but I was trying to talk myself out of it. So, yeah, it's one of those things, man. Somebody's going to get Danny Dimes, and it's probably going to be me in week 6.
Well, you save him for these matchups. These are the matchups you want him for, yeah.
All right, moving on to a more exciting game here. Oh, but never mind. LA Chargers at Carolina. And it's no surprise, LA wins this one 26-3, putting the LA Chargers at 2-0 and the Carolina Panthers at 0-2. At least they scored 3 points, though.
So I had this game on. I was trying to watch it, but it seemed like every time I looked up, it was coming out back from a commercial because it was always a 3-and-out, always a turnover, always a punt, and for both sides, really. And then when the Chargers scored, a lot of times they were longer plays, surprisingly enough. Quentin Johnson had a nice long touchdown catch, and it was funny if you saw J.K. Dobbins' long touchdown run. It looked like he was going to slow down like he did last week. Yeah. He's like, you know what? I think I can make the extra 10. He's getting ready to stop. He's like, it's only 12 more yards. Let's go for it. And the other guy let him it was just funny because he kind of slowed down. He's like, I'm not going to give up this time. But he had that, you could see in his head, like he had like 3 different thoughts going and then went down the sideline to score.
Yeah, no, I did see that. He did look good there. So. All right. Anything on the other side? Not really.
I didn't get to see any plays from Carolina because there weren't that many. But with only 3 points, I know we were kind of. I was. Of course, we're done with this. I was trying to give Bryce Young a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Did you see any of his play at all? Was it circumstance, or is he just that bad?
No, it's hard to judge him on how good or bad he is based on the pressure that he's getting. The hits that he's taking, I just don't know if it's him or if it's a combination of him and the line. It's really just bad football. It's not cohesive football. So, and I didn't watch a ton of the games, but the one I did see, the couple plays I did see, it didn't look good for Bryce. So, and I feel bad for the kid. It's one of those things. He got drafted high because the team was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's go into the next game. A little bit nicer game to watch here. Cleveland at Jacksonville. Cleveland wins this one 18-13, putting Cleveland at 1-1 and Jacksonville at 0-2, which is a surprise.
So Jackson on this one, I don't know if it started this way, but by the end of it, it was a rainy mess on the field in this game. So that was not good for Trevor Lawrence in general. I didn't see Deshaun Watson complete too many passes when I was looking. Obviously, Amari Cooper was on the dud list. I don't know who caught I don't know how many yards he finished with, but he did score a rushing touchdown, and it wasn't even a delay. It was like a wildcat where he was starting to run forward before the snap got to his hands. It wasn't even a fake. He's like, just give it. I'm just going in. I don't know if it was I'm sure it was a design, but it wasn't even. He's like, I can't throw it to anybody. Let me just take this myself. So he finished okay in that regard. It was a low scoring game. Rainy. I saw another fumble from Tank Bigsby. So that's what got him off the field last year. So if I'm not mistaken, that's 2 straight games with a fumble. Etienne fumbled last week as well. I don't know what Etienne did this week. I know he's not on the stud or dud list.
Wait. Tank Bigsby's not in this game.
You said Jacksonville?
Yeah. I don't see him on. I don't see him in the box score at all.
Maybe I thought I saw him with a fumble.
Yeah, the 2 fumble. I've got Trevor Lawrence with a fumble and Deontay Foreman with a fumble on the other side.
Maybe it was a handoff that I saw it coming off of his chest or something, and maybe they gave it to Lawrence.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe.
So what did Etienne get in this game?
So Etienne had 13 carries for 52 yards and the touch. And then Dearness Johnson was right behind him with 5 carries. So Tank Bigsby didn't even.
I saw his number on a fumble.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, so maybe it was attributed to another player, but the coaches might have thought it was his fault kind of thing.
Gotcha.
But the stat doesn't match up with the execution.
Right.
And they benched him last year due to fumbles. So if I don't know the order of things, I could be, I kind of have to double check this, but I could convince myself that fumble was early and then he got taken out of the game for Dearness Johnson.
Yeah. I mean, that could be it. So, and then on the other side, Deonta Foreman outcarried Jerome Ford.
Okay.
14 carries to Jerome Ford's 7 carries. So I didn't look like they really had a good game plan for what was going on the ground.
Sorry. I think they're calling
intercepted.
It was a defensive touchdown, but I think they said it was incomplete, not an interception. You almost
I
got your.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next game.
He caught that. Oh, I don't know. That's close. All right. Sorry.
All right. Well, let's watch the replay. And yeah, his hands are under the ball. That point of that ball did not. Ooh, right there.
The second time it might. It's close.
Did he have control? That's control. No, the ball's spinning. That second.
But does it ever hit? Oh, that's close. All
right, let's move on. We'll keep watching, but let's move this along here. All right, so let's go to the last of the early games. Las Vegas at Baltimore, and this one broke a lot of people's hearts. Las Vegas wins this one 26-23, putting Las Vegas at 1-1. And for the first time in 20 years, the MVP quarterback is 0-2.
So I don't know how the Raiders came back. I had this game on again, you're bouncing around a little bit, and you're like, "Oh, that game's out of reach." And the only thing I was upset about was like they're going to have 20 minutes to let Derrick Henry salt this away. Mm-hmm. And he got a lot of his yards during that span, but I guess he wasn't getting enough of them to keep multiple drives going. Because there was so much time. They needed to kill not just one drive. It wasn't like they had 6 minutes left. There was 4 minutes left in the third period at least, and they were up by the 16 or 18 points, whatever it was. And you just assume by the way the game was going that they were going to be able to just run the clock out. And I don't know, again, if it was it seemed like I saw a lot of nice deep ins by mostly Flowers, not only Flowers, but Flowers got a lot of receptions today, especially for his style of play and that team style of play.
Yeah.
But it seemed like Jackson was missing on the important third downs.
Yeah.
They were moving the ball, but not converting when they needed to. And then they kept giving the ball back to the Raiders. And like I said last week on the one drive that I really noticed, or at least the one portion of the game where the Raiders were targeting 3 different tight ends, they were doing it again. I was like, Bowers looks great. And like, is that Bowers again? Nope, that's Mayer. Oh, wow, is that Mayer? Nope, that's number 80. They went 84, 87, 89. We're just getting catches. And then at this time, they were sprinkling in. It was almost like they were the running backs in terms of flow of the game. They were using those guys in the middle of the field on those 8-yard kind of just turn up the seams, not going deep. And then when they finally had the linebackers had to suck up, or the safeties in this case, suck up to those guys, and they were hitting Devontae Adams with the deeper outs and crosses in the back line. So they had a nice little mix. The running game wasn't what was doing it. Instead of using the running game to play action, they were using tight end, middle short stuff to suck in the back end, then hitting over the long passes to the receivers that way. It was an interesting way to do it, and it was just as effective. They just moved their point of attack backs or forward 6 yards.
Yeah, and I think that shows in the stat line completely what you just said, because the team rushing total carries was only 17 carries for the team. And then Gardner Minshew was efficient, 30 for 38.
Oh, that's wow. Yeah.
233 yards, one touch, one interception. But he spread the ball around. He hit 30 receptions, and Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers both with 9 receptions. But Devontae had the 12 targets, so he was.
Can you break down the targets if you can tell by the tight ends? You said
okay, so Brock Bowers had 9.
Bowers, Mayer, and then I think they have Harrison Bryant, and maybe there's probably a no-name guy that you never.
Yeah, so we got Bowers had 9. Michael Mayer had 1.
Are these catches or targets?
Targets.
Okay.
Amir Abdullah.
Yeah, he's a running back. They're their small third down back.
Harrison Bryant.
Maybe I just saw Mayer's only target, but it was that one drive.
Trey Tucker.
Trey Tucker's a little receiver.
Yeah.
Okay. It might just be when I happen to look up. I saw 3 different tight ends get targeted in one drive, and maybe it's just the only time it happened. But I saw it again.
Yeah. So,
but Bowers is good, man. Bowers is good.
Yeah, that's a Georgia boy, and he was high coming off of that the draft. And then the other note that I saw about this game was that his name just slipped my mind. The Raiders defensive guy
Crosby cracked the crap out of Derrick Henry.
Oh yeah, Crosby played 100% of the defensive snaps.
He does that all the time.
Second game in a row now.
Yeah. So, I think he did that all of last year. It was a big deal when he had to come out because he had a bad injury, but he missed 3 plays.
Yeah, crazy. So good on them. It was an exciting game to watch, and elimination pool. So Cincinnati last week.
Oh yeah.
Baltimore this week. That was the big knockout for everybody.
And I haven't seen too many times with Derrick Henry. Obviously, it's easier to tackle in the backfield before he gets momentum, and this is where this hit was. Mm-hmm. But these guys sandwiched, and Crosby was the one standing over him. He cracked Henry, and that's just not so much how good Henry is, but that's a big guy to knock over. A lot of times you trip Henry up on his ankles. And,
Henry's the guy with the stiff arm that's throwing guys 5 yards back.
We know Crosby's good, but he demolished him in the backfield.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure Henry will look for him next time they come cross paths. If Henry's still playing. All right. So we'll move on to the next game. I know you got a lot to say about this game. The LA Rams at Arizona. And this one was a blowout. This was kind of like the New Orleans at Dallas game.
Yeah.
LA Rams lose 10-41. Putting the LA Rams 0-2 and Arizona at 1-1.
So first, there's a lot of places to start, not necessarily go in order, but the Rams last week had a ton of injuries. Not only was Puka Nacua didn't finish the game, but they had, I think, 3 defensive backs. I don't know the combination of players, but they had 6 starters last week, or 6 contributors who got hurt and left the game last week. So they're playing with a lessened roster already in spots that you might not notice as just a casual fan, but they've lost some players. And then Cooper Kupp, he looked very uncomfortable on that ankle. I kind of saw a little of what looked like a sprain or a little bit of a twist or snap or something. Not snap as in break, but just, you see it either get rolled under or something. But he was not putting any pressure on that thing. And when I guess it was later in halftime when it happened, and he didn't come out of the locker room.
Yeah, it looked rough. He only had 6 targets. He only had the 4 receptions. It did look rough for Cooper. But before that, he was still making plays, and he's a great player there.
Yeah, and so now let's go to the side that not matters, but the side that's more fun to talk about. Arizona, they scored fast. They scored quick. They scored 2 touchdowns on that first 2. I think it was first 2 drives, maybe first 2 out of 3. But Marvin Harrison caught a bomb. What I found impressive about that, not how he got open and caught it, the length of his dive without hitting the ground to make it to the goal line. I don't know how he reached the goal line. I don't know how his body didn't hit the ground before he got there.
There was a Michael Jordan reference, and the commentators laid out there.
Oh, I didn't have the volume on. I just saw it.
There were a couple. They were just like, oh my god! Everybody was in awe of.
He just laid out, and he's not the fastest guy. Obviously, these guys are fast, so it wasn't one of those. Yeah. Sometimes you see guys jumping it's just the air just carries them. He just go gadget armed reach. He did a non-jump dive that went 6 yards. It was just crazy.
Yeah. So it was good to see that Marvin Harrison got on the board. Kyler Murray, though, 17-21, 266, and 3 touchdowns.
And what I did notice, even after the 2 touchdowns from Harrison early, later in the game, they weren't connecting, but they were still targeting him, trying to get him even more touchdowns. So it wasn't like you got enough, rookie, let's get the next guy. I don't know if they had a little, I don't say squeaky wheel. They realized this is our best receiver. We got to be a little more concentrate on getting the ball, because they did. And even after they got him the ball, they were still trying to get it to him. And
there was eight targets for him today.
And once again, this guy kills me because I was playing against him today. But James Conner's sweet feet, man. He just dances around the bodies on the floor. There we go. Zombies on the floor, whatever. Bodies on the floor, whatever that song is. He was like, I mean, he's fast enough. I'm not saying he's slow, but like the thing that sticks out in your head is just where his feet are going around the things. They're not big cuts. They're not stop and go. It's just like, there's a guy's arm there, or he doesn't jump over people. He just steps like in the right spot. It's like he's like hitting the right tiles on a Indiana Jones patio to get to the crystal skull, whatever, at the end of the thing. Horrible reference, but you get it.
No. I do know what you're saying, and I believe that you just incorporated 3 different Indiana Jones movies into one reference.
James Conner took the last crusade to the crystal skull to find the destiny of Dial of Destiny. It's crazy.
Oh my goodness. So James Conner, but 21 carries, 122 yards, 1 touchdown, and his long was 22. So lots of 1s and 2s for James Conner.
And also this one, he wasn't going to score on it as easily as I thought Josh Jacobs would have, but he also did fumble going towards the end zone, and McBride of Frankenstein recovered the fumble for a touchdown in that game.
Yeah, and just to give him a little shout out, Mr. McBride. Oh, and my iPad just froze. Okay, here we go. He was 6 for 6 for 67 yards, and his long was 21. And so he turned it on. He took his 6 targets and he made something out of them.
It seemed like he was the one they were using to like move the chains when it was before the game was settled, because they sat Connor and Kyler Murray for those last 7 to 8 minutes. Once they got a turnover and it was they had 24 points and the ball in the middle of the fourth quarter, then they sat their starters. So thank God for that. For the people who were playing against James Conner, once again sitting Kyler Murray, who outscores Patrick Mahomes. Oh boy, I can see a Kansas City rant come this week, guys. Get ready for that one.
Yeah, and let's just say it. Who would have thought going into this season that the LA Chargers would have been 2-0 and the LA Rams would have been 0-2?
Yeah.
It is what it is. All right, here we go. Pittsburgh at Denver. Pittsburgh wins this one 13-6 in a sloppy game across the board for everybody. 2-0 for Pittsburgh and 0-2 for Denver. So
I've had to we've won because there's not as many 4:00 games as the 1:00 games, so Denver makes the cut very easily. These Denver games are brutal.
Yeah, they are.
Bo Nix is brutal. I will compare him slightly, not 100%. I'll compare him slightly to Will Levis in that he tries to run away from pressure, and he's honestly not fast enough, and he's not strong enough. Most guys will as they kind of run backwards to run around pressure. They're still back 12 yards, but then they can kind of fling a pass down the sideline to somebody. He cannot, as he runs backwards, he can't turn back upfield to throw the ball in bounds. He always has to throw it. It's like 12 yards to the right or left, depending on which way he's rolling, because he's not fast enough to get away and then square his body up, even in that last moment. He's running backwards. He's not taking sacks. He's throwing them away. If that's what you want your guy to do, is throw it away. But he's throwing away all the time, and they're not even close to anybody. He physically can't make the throws on the run with the pressure. He's not fast enough, and he's not arm strong enough to do it. And I feel bad for the guy, but they're not going to do anything this year. He's not making the mistakes. Although let me take that back. They had one long bomb they caught down. I forgot who caught it. I think I can guess, but I'm not going to right here. Anyway, he only had one long catch down the middle of the field to about the 12-yard line. And then the very next throw he had, an interception in the end zone.
All right. it was Josh Reynolds that caught the long,
that's right.
49 yards.
Yes.
Yep. It was rough. And Denver's not going to win this game with Bo Nix trying to pass, but also Bo Nix as your leading rusher. Bo Nix had 25 yards beating out Javonte Williams at 17 yards. You're just not going to win games like that.
At a eye test, I did see Jaleel McLaughlin on the field a little bit, but it felt like to me that Javonte Williams on the field way more. Could you have their carry count there between the two players or target count or something?
Yeah, Javonte was 11 carries for 17 yards. He was also 5 targets and 5 receptions for 48 yards.
Okay.
So he did much better as a receiver than he did as a runner. Jaleel McLaughlin had 3 carries for 6 yards, and he was not targeted.
So 16 opportunities to 3 between the two.
Yeah.
And another note here, I forgot to mention, Audric Estime, their rookie running back, who was in the mix last week, didn't play as much as the other 2 guys, but he definitely played in that triumvirate of awful running backs. But he is now on the IR, so the backfield is now going to be between McLaughlin and Javonte Williams only, except for the practice squad players they moved up this week for depth.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's McLaughlin Jaleel doesn't know. Doesn't know the playbook or isn't good at blocking schemes or he's something, but I think he's the better back. I think he needs to get the ball a little bit more, both running and passing. So I would like to see that shift, and Bo not so much. Maybe that might help. I
did notice that, like I said, in a joking manner, but it was true that Javonte Williams is a much better blitz pickupper or blocker in the backfield. What they should maybe do, though, if those are your 2, honestly, their receivers aren't very good, and they've got a bunch of NFL guys. Cortland Sutton is the only kind of name guy, but even he's not a superstar.
Right.
You're potentially your best 2 players, and this is sad to say, is Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin. Play them at the same time. Do what the Dolphins do. Put the running back and have them go back and forth, because these guys aren't good enough to just take the ball up the middle by themselves. But a little misdirection with these guys, you don't know which one's going to get it because they both can catch the ball. One guy, takes the fake handoff, turns up for the little sit down center screen, and the other guys run the other direction.
And that's Bo Nix's that's Bo Nix's distance right there.
Right. So I think they should play them more together to have a chance to have any one of them do anything. They're not good enough by themselves to be the focal point of the backfield to get any yards.
I know. Sean Payton, if you're listening, come on. I know you're like supposedly a good coach, but
that's what he'll tell you.
Take some pointers here. You did take a break, and who knows what you did on your break? You might have lost some brain cells or something.
All right, let's get to the Pittsburgh side of this here.
All right, Pittsburgh side. Justin Fields, 13 for 20, 117 yards, 1 touchdown. He didn't do much on the floor. He had 8 rushes for 27 yards. Najee, 17 carries for 69 yards. And then we got Pat Freiermuth, 4 for 39. George Pickens, 2 for 29, and then a couple other guys down here at the bottom.
I felt like, obviously, Jaylen Warren was dealing with I think it was a hamstring injury, if I'm not mistaken. He didn't play much last week. Like I think it said 80-20 in favor of Najee Harris.
Yeah.
Definitely was still majority Harris, but I did see Warren on the field a lot more this week than I did last week.
Yeah, Jaylen Warren was 9 for 42 on the ground, and he was 2 for 19 with 2 targets, 2 receptions for 19 yards in the air.
I thought for a moment Pittsburgh was going to win a second week in a row without scoring a touchdown, but they did score 1 touchdown.
Yeah, and then Justin Fields did lose a fumble, and Jaylen Warren did have a reception drop, I guess, or a reception fumble. I don't know what they call that as. So I don't know. It was good to see that they won the game, so I'm a little bit happy that maybe Justin will get another thing. But like I said earlier in the show, Pickens did have 2 touchdowns that were called back off of penalties, so it could have been a bigger game for both of my guys, and Pittsburgh could have really put their dominance on Denver, but they didn't really need to win the game.
All right. Do we have another game, or is it the last one?
We got one more, the last one for tonight, or for the 4:00 games. Cincinnati at KC.
Oh, yeah.
Cincinnati loses this in an actual nail biter, 25-26. Cincinnati is now 0-2, and KC is 2-0. There's a lot of talk of the NFL loves KC, and they're getting their calls. So
it's hard. I want to say, I don't think that call would be called all the time, that last pass interference over the middle of the field. He was hit a little early, but they were stretched out high. It wasn't like he went through him to get the ball. He hit him, but the guy was going to catch it anyway. The ball was over his head, and the defender was higher at the high point of that ball.
Yeah.
I hate. I don't want to tease too or give up too much here. Maybe something else will come in. I hate Kansas City's offense. I've had to watch Mahomes 2 years now, And Mahomes has been great for his career, right? So I'm like, last time he had a down year, he came back with his best year ever. So I'm like, if I had his down year last year, I want to get his best year the next year. And their offense is so hard to watch. They just hand the ball off and go right at the middle for a couple. I'm doing it. I can't.
That's all right.
They do nothing all the time, and they get bailed out because their defense does well. That's why last year they didn't. And then they just had the mystique in the playoffs. So like, as long as you get the playoffs, they're like, oh, be afraid of Mahomes. But they're not doing anything. The other team is psyched out. They went on the psych out, and there's no reason to be psyched out. These guys are not doing anything. Just play your game and outscore them.
So I think the problem with KC is that we kind of, at this KC for the past couple of years, we take the fantasy side and then we take the actual NFL side and we kind of blur them together. Like, oh no, this is the Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs. You got to get a piece of their offense. They're gonna put up these wins that don't always translate into fantasy value all the time. And sometimes it's late season fantasy value and not early season fantasy value. So it was tough to watch, Pat Mahomes, only 18 for 25, 151 with 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. It sounds like a decent stat line, but when you have Kyler Murray on your bench, you're like, who looks at it and goes, who's the better quarterback, Kyler Murray or Patrick Mahomes? Everybody's just going to say Patrick Mahomes. Who's the better fantasy quarterback right now? Kyler Murray.
Well, this game had the point. Like you thought. I mean, these teams have been better offenses in general for their past, and this is the type of game. Like, all right, these are two. I know Bengals are having a hard time lately, but they're like going into the season. Like you're like, these have 2 good names. Like they've been the postseason off in the last few years, and they've played each other. It's like this is going to be a good game because of the names on the front of the shirts, if you will. And the points got there, but it was all like. He threw his touchdown to an offensive lineman.
Wayne Morris.
There you go. Nice. To an offensive lineman. The other one was like a half end around pass.
The other one was Rashee Rice, who's on my team. 5 for 75 in the touch.
Yeah. They're just none of the passes are downfield. They're all like little crappy things in crowds, and it's just not fun to watch. But then they get the first down because there's a penalty somewhere, or Pacheco gets a 6-yard run, but it's like, oh my gosh, 6 yards at the most on any play, and it's like they need a penalty to help them. They get it. Get it. They're like they're starting to get the treatment of the Patriots from like 8 years ago, where they're like, that's close enough. We got to give it to them. I don't want to do that to them. That's what it's starting to look like.
Yeah, and a lot of fans of the NFL have watched this game. Don't like the Bengals, don't like the Chiefs, don't really have a dog in the fight, and they're looking at it going, do we want the players to decide the outcome of the game, or do we want the refs to decide the outcome of the game? It seems like every time the Chiefs are playing, a little bit of the refs help out decide the outcomes of these games. It's all in the lens that you view it. So
also in this game, I know we're getting a little long. We're okay, but so I always make a joke like I don't know football enough to do an X and O coach, but let me be the one who says when to go for 2 and when to call timeouts. I don't know why coaches make mistakes on this all the freaking time. So I thought earlier in the game that Cincinnati had an opportunity, a thought that they should go potentially for 2. I forget what the number was at the time, but they went for the extra point and missed the extra point. So in a sense, it was like they went for 2 and didn't get it. All that meaning is like the remainder of the game is like if they went for that and didn't get it, we're playing from here.
Right.
Because I would have put them up by like say 3 instead of 2 or something, but instead they were up by 1 or maybe 5 instead of 4, whatever it was. But then later, the Kansas City took the lead and they wanted to go up by 3 instead of just being up by 2.
Right.
They were up by 1. They or whatever. I forget the number. Maybe they're up. They're whatever. It was in that 1 to 3 point range, give or take. And they went for 2. And I'm like, why would you do that? Yes, it makes it nice and easy where now you're down by 3 or up by 3. They would have put them up by 3, meaning that they couldn't lose on a field goal. But the other team scored the field goal, and then later if they score a touchdown, now you're down by 9 points. If you would have just taken the extra point, you would have that worst case scenario. The rest of the game, you'd be down by 8 points. But by trying to be cute and making, we're tied when there's still 12 minutes in the game left to go. It's not like there's 3 minutes left. There's 12 minutes left in the game. Don't do the math. Just get points because you never know what the situation is going to be. 9 points is way different than 8. 6 is not that much different than 8. You know what I'm saying? It's still a 1-score game. And they missed it. And Cincinnati was going to score a touchdown to go up by 9 points,
Right.
but a penalty by Jamar Chase backed him up 15 yards as he was barking at the ref after a play, and they had to settle for a field goal, which kept that in that 1 or 2 point game with a long kick by Butker won the game. But like, I hate these decisions. Like they think of like, oh, this is nice. Let's get up by 7. Who cares? You got 20 more minutes of the game to go. Just get up by 6 and keep playing.
Take the points. But and sometimes you just got to roll with it when you're the guy that knows the coach.
The thing is, these bad math problems. Remember last year, the coach for the Chargers would always make the mistake, but they won like 3 of those games, or they missed like all their 4th downs and 2-point conversions. Before it all piled up and he lost like 6 in a row because he was so bad. I'm like, you're getting rewarded for making bad choices, but like you're putting your I don't know. It bothers me. Okay.
You digress. It's with the term that they call the assumption of rational coaching.
Yes, there you go.
Just throw that out the window there.
Yep.
So, all right. On the other side, we got the Burrow 23 for 36, 258, and 2 touchdowns. So he had a bounce back game. And Jamar Chase, 4 for 35. That's it.
He was targeting his tight ends all day long. It was a tight end fest.
Mike Gesicki, 9 targets against Jamar Chase's 5. So he had a little safety blanket there.
And then it looked like I think their numbers are 31 and 30, so it was a little hard to tell at a glance. But every time I thought, they're going to Zach Moss. Nope, I think it was Chase Brown. I feel like those guys were really going back and forth, maybe splitting the carries pretty evenly, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, Zach Moss had 12 carries. Chase Brown had 4 carries. Zach Moss only had 1 reception, and Chase Brown had no reception.
Okay, maybe I just like I said, they both had similar numbers, so maybe I was just assuming they were going back and forth.
Yeah. So, and that pretty much wraps up the slate of late games. The Chicago game is still going on. As we record this now, they're in the 4th quarter. Houston is up 19-10. With the ball. I think they just had a pick on Caleb, so Houston's got the ball driving down the field.
All right, guys. So let's move along here with after today's games. If we have any early waiver wire thoughts, we'll dive into it a little more in depth for the Wednesday show. But so I've got a couple off the bat here. Well, let you go first because I wrote these down. So let's see if you get it, cross anything off, and then I'll fill this in. Do you have any from today's performances and or injuries? Do you have any early waiver wire thoughts or potential pickup options here?
Yeah. So what do you think about Derek Carr? He's coming in at a pretty big number. He had a great outing for 2 weeks now. So what do you think about that?
Well, I would say for the teams that potentially need quarterback help, I know, for example, yours is one of them. You're doing streaming right now, and they're not killing you, but they're not helping you.
Exactly.
Mac Daddy 2's in a similar boat. I believe you said, I didn't double check today, but he was starting Caleb Williams, and they don't have a lot of points. I don't know how he's doing particularly. And also, if you have people like Patrick Mahomes and you're looking for quarterbacks, Derek Carr is a good option for you as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you got Patrick Mahomes and you don't have, who do you have on the bench?
Murray.
If you don't have Kyler Murray on the bench, then yes.
So I would say in that same vein, Derek Carr is definitely a streamable, if not a higher level streamable quarterback, at least the way their offense is playing right now. He's not getting all the stats for the points, considering how many points they're scoring, but he's getting some. He had a rushing touchdown today and late to help out his stat line. And I would say Sam Darnold is also, they're both out there, and at least I think they're both out there in our league at the moment.
Yeah, they are.
And Geno Smith is the same way. I think he's out there now. He went back and forth on your team.
He's not. He's on my team.
You picked him back up?
Yep. I picked up 2 quarterbacks just in case.
Yeah, so I would say that definitely Derek Carr and Darnold, if you don't mind throwing that in the same kind of bucket, there are guys who are definitely worth rostering, especially if you're not confident in your quarterback or need help.
Yeah, and then since the kickers seem to be outpointing a lot of the positional players, what about Siebert? It's his first game. They just picked him up. He was on the street, not literally on the street, but out there in the world living his best life, and he comes in and scores 22 fantasy points in our league, kicks 7-7.
So the way I look at it, a team like the Commanders, anytime I see a team that has like good athletes that are going to be touching the ball, a receiver can't do much by himself. So I'm saying if you have like a great running back, for example, I remember like years with maybe Adrian Peterson's not fair, or as he's getting older. These are types of teams that can move the ball for the chains. They can move it, but they're not seasoned or great or diversified in their offense to get all the way to the end zone. Like, all right, we can pick up the 3rd and 4 at the 40-yard line, but once we have 3 plays at the 12, we're going to go incomplete. Because our passing game is not the best part of our game. So teams that are decent running games with scrambling quarterbacks who can keep drives going, those are the guys who can get from 20s to 20s. And then that kickers on those teams are the ones that are going to get 3 points instead of touchdowns. So there's potential there because they get to the red zone. Last week they got to the red zone 4 or 5 times, and they got stuffed to the goal line a bunch. I know Daniels ended up scoring 2 rushing touchdowns, but only because he tried 3 times. Yeah, they're not efficient when they get down to in that red zone area, but they get into it. So I would say, it's hard to drop a kicker for another. But if you got a kicker for someone like Tennessee or Chicago or a team that's not scoring a lot of points, I say Saber's at least worth a look.
Yeah, matchup dependent is definitely worth a look, and those are all great points. All right, I got 2 wide receivers for you. Quentin Johnson,
yes,
he had 19.6 points this week, and Jalen Naylor had 12.9 points. Jalen Naylor kind of depending on the status of Jefferson.
So Quentin Johnson, he looked good in the plays I saw. He looked fat. He was a first-round pick last year in the NFL draft, and he had an awful season with drops, inconsistency, but he was also the 3rd receiver on that team with Keenan Allen and Josh Palmer. I feel like they might have had someone else who I can't remember. I feel there's someone else who was kind of like a 3rd, 4th guy that he was falling behind because he was not doing very well. This year, he is the 1A behind Josh Palmer, who's never been good when he has to be the 1. He's a great second receiver when someone else has taken the attention away, but when he has to do it himself, he usually gets shut down. So with that being said, he looked good today. He looked like the type of player who was taken in the first round. He looked fast. He looked strong. His touchdown was a diving catch. Last year, he could not make a diving catch if his life depended on it. So not only, and I think he also got an end around for a decent run or a decent gain. I mean, they're using him for his skill set, and he's starting to get a little more comfortable in catching the ball in the more contested, athletic type plays where your body's not in complete control.
Yeah. All right. And then Jalen Naylor, just to keep an eye on Justin Jefferson's situation.
He's gotten double-digit points both weeks.
So, all right. And then lastly, for my list here, just keep an eye on Braylon Allen. If you're a Breece Hall owner, he might be a good handcuff. If you need a really desperate flex option, he might show you something. Unfortunately, he didn't show Katie anything in week 1, like you said, but he did show something, with 2 touchdowns this week. So Braylon Allen on the Jets.
So I got a couple more here. Like I mentioned earlier, that Isaiah Pacheco apparently left the stadium on crutches. I don't know the severity of the injury. I don't know if he had a walking boot on, and sometimes they're just to get the weight off your feet to start the healing process as soon as possible. But Carson Steele was in the game a lot. I'd never seen him before. I've heard his name a little bit, but he was in the game a lot. He was their short down back even when Pacheco was still in the game. That last drive where they were trying to get just in the field goal range, I think they went for it on 4th and 1 and gave it to him. If I'm not mistaken, he's not a huge guy, but they were giving to him in like the T-bone backfield there with the split running backs where he kind of go to either guy, going in both directions off of Mahomes, and they were giving to him most of the time. I think he almost scored a touchdown on one of those similar plays, but he did get stuffed. Like I say, he's not a huge guy, but he was the only one I saw on the field other than Pirine a couple of times. So obviously not one guy's going to take the place of Pacheco if he's potentially going to miss any time. Again, keep up with that throughout the week. But Carson Steele was definitely the running back, other than Pacheco, that was on the field the most in this game.
Yeah, with Steele, just so you have some context here, he's got he had 7 carries for 24 yards in this game. He did have 1 reception. No, he didn't have any receptions. I'm sorry. Samaje Perine had the 1 reception, but Steele, I don't know where the coach is on this. He did have 1 fumble for 1 loss. I didn't see it, so I didn't know what the situation was. If it was a bad carry or just not his fault, just a big hit, nothing you could do about it, helmet on the ball kind of deal. He did have that though, so just something to keep an eye on.
One other player I have here. So Demarcus Robinson was the target for the wide receiver room for the Rams with the injury to Puka Nacua, but with sorry, I'm saying a lot right now. I'm kind of getting a little tired here, I guess. But with Cooper Kupp going out Tutu Atwell, I saw him a lot more on the field, and Demarcus Robinson had kind of what he usually does. He gets that 60 yards. If he scores, it makes it a day. If he doesn't, it's just, it is what it is. But Tutu Atwell was the guy. They were starting to get the ball a lot more often before Cooper Kupp got back from his injury in the first 4 weeks. It was like Puka Nacua was their possession receiver, but Tutu Atwell was their secondary possession receiver. He was one kind of not just running bombs, but running the more high leverage routes. But it seemed like to me they were not Now Stafford might have been just disorientated by losing his top two receivers in back-to-back weeks, but they were not. He was not focusing in on Robinson at all. Maybe they weren't making the catches, but I thought I saw Tutu Atwell coming off the ground from targets either with or without the ball. It seemed like he might be the one who's going to get the more consistent type, move the chains type targets. And he kind of fits the body type a little more similar to Cooper Kupp as that faster, shorter kind of player. He's not nearly as tough as Cooper Kupp is, but that might be the person running those type of routes. While Demarcus Robinson is going to do the deeper, 18-yard, 20-yard ins at the end of down the field, and Tutu Atwell is going to do both the bombs and the shorts, and nothing in between.
Yeah, I think so. And last year, Tutu had some big plays, so I'm on board with that. Keep an eye on Kupp.
All right. Is there anyone else that we should get early waiver wire thoughts here?
No, that's all. That's all I have right now for my list. We'll definitely do a deep dive on the next episode and really get our managers informed.
All right. So with that being said, guys, I want to thank you all so very much for joining another episode of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. You were part of the 2-point conversation as we went through all of the games, and we went through all of the stats. And I want to thank you all so very much for watching. Don't forget, you can find our audio versions of this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube Music. Just search Wingman the League. It'll pop up right to the top of your search. If you want to see our video feeds of this, go to wingmanentertainment.net/podcast, or go ahead and check out our YouTube channel at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube, where you can go there and leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. I want to thank Ken, the Fantastics, who's been a little more active on there lately. I appreciate you, my man. We will definitely get any of our comments into our next mailbag segment on Friday mornings, rather. So with that being said, guys, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty,
and we will see you next time.
All right. You took it.